I'm fine too. So let's see. Okay, I can't use my headphones. I will kick off and give you host. Okay, great. Okay, we are live now on YouTube. Seems like great. It seems like nobody joined to us except me and you, Adam. So
Okay.
you can make a demo just for me. uh, hey, host. Okay. So yeah,
Um,
probably let's wait a few
sure.
minutes. For,
I should
I hope.
confess, firstly, unfortunately, the custom I ran your data English to Spanish through machine translation and then gave it all risk predictions to kind of get a sense of things, but just using our generic model. And your custom model did not finish training yet. It's still training right now. So, but anyway, I went through your numbers, how many strings you have, and all of this stuff. And then as soon as the custom model is ready, I'll share that. And the custom model is for all of your languages, not just Spanish.
Okay, sounds great.
So
So 1 second, please.
it's possible they had some trouble joining. I had trouble, and I think you had trouble joining, correct?
Yeah, but it's because it wasn't set up, so uh, it's like nobody hosted, and that's what was a problem. Yeah, just give me a second. So yeah, seems like nobody joined to us, and I think we can start now. So what is the okay? Let me just share my screen and go with the protocol that we have. So we have an agenda, and like nice to see you here. We're starting this call, and yeah, the first point in our agenda is machine translation risks and demo from you. So probably if you can share your screen and make your demo, it will be great. So I stop sharing my screen and go ahead.
All right, I'm sharing now. So I won't bore you too much with what model front is because you already know essentially what we do. You've seen.
Sorry. Try to, you can explain it's like from scratch because this video are going to be on the YouTube and other mates can
Okay.
just
All right,
watch
so
it.
I've created in the issue down here a comment with a link to my notes. So everything I show is linked so others can get to it. And yeah, so that's here. And I'll just click into that. And right, so we catch bad translations. You know, at this point on a segment level, 0 to 1, so to speak, or 0 to 100% risk. Yeah, it's based on deep learning. It supports, let's call it all languages, definitely all the languages you need. It works for machine translation and human translation. It just doesn't even know, is it a machine translation or is it a human translation? And the API and console are the main ways to interact with it. In your case, probably the API is more interesting. And we happen to be built with Node.js, which is pretty rare for a machine learning pipeline. We have, machine learning pipeline under the hood. And of course, as you know, we're looking to support some open projects who are localizing openly or doing research and so on. And the API docs are here. So for Mozilla, right, which is also an openly localized project and open source project, we have this already, and this is shareable and linked in those notes. So you can see here, this is just running Mozilla translations. Mozilla does use Google Translate and then post edits. So Mozilla maybe is a good sort of example or something, for Node.js, I think, right? Because it's it's an open project, but maybe more languages already using machine translation, not using custom machine translation. So not that advanced, but still pretty advanced. And you see here, if you use machine translation, that with Mozilla, that most, and this is just standard Google, not even custom, most of them are pretty low risk, the vast majority. So it's actually a pretty good candidate, especially with some, and that doesn't mean everything, right? And so whenever we, so each of these is getting a risk score. And whenever you download, right, these are about 60,000 strings, you download it all. And I've also linked that here, right? So you go download that all. Oh, I didn't put the link to the, I'll add that afterwards. But so what you see, of course, and this is just the machine translations, not their actual human translations. You see a few catastrophes. I've sorted by risk, right? So this is just a catastrophe, right? Cookies is getting translated like this, not correct in a technical context. Firefox is getting translated to Firefox. The Turkey, the country, to Turkey, the bird, and so on. Okay, so this is not good. Iran getting translated like Ihrante, like Iran. Okay, this is not good, but if we go look at the big picture here again, right? I mean, I barely scroll down and already we're at, okay, 18% risk, scroll down a little more, we're at 3%, right? So the vast majority, all the rest, all the way down it was translated fine with machine translation, if you believe Model Front. So, it's very tempting in such a situation to not even review these, depending on how good we're doing, to skip those, or at least use them as a placeholder, sort of the way you used crowdsourced translations that are not yet approved, or the way you might use English. So, so that's for Mozilla. I've done something similar for Node.js. So just taking the English sources from the Spanish, this is the largest set of English strings that you have, about 50,000. And here the distribution does not look as good, but let me compare here, right? This is using a custom Mozilla model, whereas this is just using a generic model. And our generic model may be harsh on some of your translations, might see them as risky, right? So this is a great example, right? So actually, complementos, I looked, is your preferred translation for add-ons. Add-ons with a capital A without a dash is a kind of weird word, which is why it's considered risky. But that is actually what you want. So this is a perfect example where having the custom to say, no, this is in the Node.js context, this is how we want it translated. That will kind of avoid that false positive, save your effort, right? So I actually went through, I just downloaded that whole file and sorted by risk here. So I did, look for some of the classics. I just searched for ventanas because that's how you say windows in Spanish, just on the bet that it's going to be, not the right windows. Indeed, we didn't do a great job catching this either. I mean, we only gave it 57% risk. So again, a case where custom model will just totally crush this problem. So let's go look to the very top. These are the 100% risk categories. Again, not with a custom model. Cluster, assert. You see a lot of source code that's getting translated, which is something that we are set up to catch, and we do have custom data sets that we pull in to avoid catching that. Google, what to say? Apparently, if you go right now to either it's via the API, yeah, okay, yeah, that's Google Translate right now, right? And so, okay, well, you know, no problem. We
5 in
catch that.
USA means 55 in Spanish.
And that's the thing too with machine translation sometimes, is that although the source side is a factor, you know, the difficulty does increase the risk. It is amazing how, compared to human translation, how it can do very well on such hard things, and then something like this, you'd think they'd have a rules-based file or something just to avoid this kind of mistake. Here you see this kind of stuff, right? So, and this is a case, all of these where I would suggest not simply using model front, but using custom machine translation if you're going to do machine translation, or I guess Crowden has a translation memory, right? So just to sort of, it's great if we catch it for you, but it's much better if it never happens, right? Because at the end of the day, again, it's a small fraction, but if we're talking about a lot of, if we catch a lot of strings for you, then you still have to go fix those ones, or they don't get pushed or whatever. And so you want to reduce that. So overall, I'm optimistic about this, because this is basically easy stuff. Here we have again Windows, right? I mean, just all of this stuff where it is in the 99% risk category. If we go back, I just find it easier to look at it in model front, look at this distribution, right? Because it always looks bad when you're looking at the spreadsheet. But if we really look at it, okay, we're talking out of 50,000 translations, you know, a few thousand that are bad. So
yeah, of course.
Right, and you get a little bit better translation quality, start using your TM, add some do not translate strings, and you're going to be in much better shape. So yeah, I went totally off the script here, but yeah, I showed you how this is working for Mozilla. The links are here. I'll add the link to the spreadsheet as well. Now, the challenges I see for Node.js basically is you want to, of course, save on your human translator effort, especially if you really want to have 100 languages or something like that. You do have all of these code sources, right? I mean, just tons and tons of stuff like this, right? Which is just not meant to be translated. Occasionally, a URL or something should be translated, right? In this case,
it depends actually.
Yeah, it depends. So, and it depends is the hardest thing. And right now we have also some of these. So I just looked out of curiosity, because Google gave this translation, and I said, okay, how is that called in Spanish, or what is Node.js calling it right now? And it turns out you call it different things in different places. And so that's also something to flag, clean up once, and then train correctly, and it will get enforced. So that evaluation is up here. I put in some more numbers here in that original bug. So just about, the basic questions: how many segments you have, how many you have for each language, how many are unique. And that is maybe a challenge here, that it's not that many, right? I mean, typical Mozilla, let's say, has 60,000 for all, or for many of the top languages, right? Not for all, but most of them. And here we're talking about 100,000 total, which is not a lot for training machine translation. Luckily, our model is multilingual. So collectively, this 100K is kind of what we think about. But if you talk about training custom machine translation, Google or Microsoft generally require like 2K to 10K minimum, or recommended. So from my perspective, you won't get great machine translation without except for these very top ones. And even then it won't be great. But a lot of the stuff, because it's technical, it can benefit from dictionaries. So you don't really need the sort of the very fancy machine translation sequence to sequence kind of behavior. You need more just to say, hey, never translate Windows in any context. Because there isn't any context in Node.js where it should be translated almost, at least when it's capital. Alok, slow buffer should never be translated. And I went and I looked, one of my hobbies. You put in slow buffer here. There's a guy in India who made this great website, which just automatically does everything to all languages. And sure enough, there are a few long tail languages where slow buffer is getting translated. And some of them are not that small languages, Korean, right? So, most of these have like a few 100 million speakers, right? So you just want to lock down and avoid that possibility. I can get this out of my way. How do I get this out of my way? Yeah, so what I am, so I think I'm pretty optimistic about what you can do in this case. All of these machine translation APIs right now support that. Your volume is not very high, so however we, do the machine translation, it would probably fall in the free tier, for example, on Microsoft, but with a custom, it would cost something, but I don't know. I really think from your volume could be something like $2 a month. Now, as far as what model front plans here, since we have your TM, thank you. So firstly, find the bad translations and conflicts in your existing translations. Just little, sort like we do also for Mozilla, right? Where here we look at the human translations. And there's a few things that are not ideal, like they usually translate avatar to avatar. This one is actually legitimate, but in the context, but not ideal, and so on. This kind of thing, somebody has to go look at it, right? So same deal. Obviously, you have far fewer strings. So if, in their case, they need to look at 1,000. In your case, you might only need to look at 100. So that sounds doable. Then, so we'll do that, clean out any bad ones that we don't want in training data, boost the accuracy. I don't expect this model with this few training segments to be the best that it can be. So I will boost it, pulling in other data, and basically increase the accuracy, and also try to cover all the languages that you don't have yet. So we can get to something like, so have a pretty good, even if you're not localizing them yet, already risk prediction, customized for Node.js, working well for 100 languages. And then, and then providing that, you'll just have your API key. You can check it out in the console. For all your machine translations, crowdsourced translation or the approved translations also. So the human translations you can also send us. I don't know what you want to do, right? If you want to
make sure.
Yeah, check those again, right at the end, maybe with a different risk threshold. So all via the model front API. I don't expect your volume to be very high. I think we discussed that before. And then optionally, we could include machine translations from Microsoft or Google. Those, you can get them via our API, or you can call them separately. And free for Node.js, of course, as an open project that we also benefit from greatly. So out of order here, but that's that. And yeah, there are some open questions. Maybe first one on my mind is, what do you currently use as a placeholder? So if a string is not translated right now, what is shown to users?
So we have 3 projects. First one is a current Node.js website. Second one is a new Node.js website that we are currently working on it. And third one is API docs. So translation for API docs is never been live, and we are like just started investigating in this how we can deliver this content to the website, because currently it's showing only original source English and no any fallbacks, no any translations, just English, and that's it. And we are going to solve this. So for now, it's like open question what we're going to show as fallback. But we have Node.js website, current website, that is using English as a fallback, and it's handling by build process. So it's like checking, do we have translated file? And if not, it's like redirect a page from translated page to original source page.
So it's by the file. It's not possible that part of the page is translated and the rest of it is not.
Yeah, it's only by the file. So I'm not sure that we can help in some way.
Okay, and then of course there's the question. I think it's a longer discussion within Node.js about how aggressive you want to go, right? Do you want to start off with this is a suggestion that makes it much faster for volunteers to approve, and much faster for reviewers to review because of the getting a hint? Or do you want to say, okay, we blindly, after maybe some testing period, we blindly trust everything that's below 10% risk with our custom model?
So yeah, I cannot say for the whole team. It's just my personal opinion. But from my point of view, it's good to start using machine translations, but we are not using yet, and we need to agree with everyone. And after that, we can start using machine translations. And after that, it's reasonable to use model front. So this how I can see this process, how we can build. But in the same time, it's like a question for model front, because I believe that guys from the team is very developer oriented guys, and they are not want to have deal with like some manual comparing with JSON file or Excel file with risks, and they will start looking for some way how we can make this process automated. And it's like question for you, how we can make this process automated, because so we have CrowdIn, and on this CrowdIn we have, for example, we start using machine translations. How we can say to CrowdIn, okay, how we can take from your side the list of strings that we ready to translate by machine learning, and how we can filter it on CrowdIn side. It's like general questions. Probably you already know the answers, and it will be really helpful because you have some experience with Mozilla, and I hope they're also related with the same questions.
We don't have such a thing figured out with Mozilla, and Mozilla is different because they have Pontoon and they control Pontoon. They have their own cat tool, Pontoon. So I mean, and maybe
instead of CrowdIn, or
yeah, they don't use CrowdIn, they use Pontoon, which is their own, and maybe that's the right answer for Node.js, just because it is a similar type of project, and Pontoon is frankly quite an amazing platform, and very actively developed, let's say. But
I'm not sure that we are ready to switch.
Right, that's again. That's a big step. But I guess there's push or pull, right?
Yeah.
So and I wouldn't know too well at what stage you get a string, at what stage does a string go from your repo into Crowdin, and at what stage does a string come from Crowdin back? And then do you have some kind of, I don't know, RSS or some, pub sub at all from Crowdin?
I'm not sure that what you mean by RSS.
Well, is there a way to sort of subscribe and to does Crowdin offer some kind of API or way to subscribe so you
Okay.
can know about any updates?
Crowdin has some GitHub integration that we are using.
Mhm.
So like we are just connected our target repos,
Mhm.
and the Crowdin automatically pull content from these repos and push translated content to these repos. And that's how it works. And as much as I know, everything handled by Crowdin side, and we have like, we can subscribe to some webhooks, but I'm not sure that it's useful because there's two problems. So first problem is how we can connect this model front and take the list of strings to translate that we are like allow to translate for machines. And another question, how we can say to Crowdin to translate only these strings, So this is like two questions: request to model front and filter for Crowdin. So probably I'm going to talk with Crowdin team because with some support chat because they're very open, and I will ask, does it possible with them? Because we need like to figure it out. Is it possible? Probably we can use some custom API. Crowdin also provide their API for his services, and probably it's one of the ways how we can do this. But yeah. But a question to you is, do you have some API for that? So like we send to you our translation memory and get back risks, the list of the file of the with risks.
Yes, we have an API, but we don't, and it supports batching, but it's still designed to be streamed, so not to receive the entire TMX, because as I understand it, your TMX will be updated incrementally.
Yeah.
So you won't ever want to send the whole TMX at once. Rather, you'll want to send whatever string just came in. However,
Yeah,
if
but at
we,
the same time, we haven't access to. We are not controlling TMX at all. It's like controlled
right.
under Crowdin, and we just like can get the whole TMX.
Mhm. Right. So we do have a way. I mean, as you see, we have a console where you can drop any size of file, 10 gigs or whatever you want. So we do have a way that we don't expose this in our public API. So we can think about it. If there's a demand for it, of course, we'll add it. It's not an issue. But I think it will make more sense because, essentially would be resending every time, right? The whole thing with slight updates. So I think it would make the most sense to only send the changes in some way.
Probably we can make this send a new translation memory once a week, because I don't know that we are. Is it useful to make machine translations and like more rarely?
Mhm.
Uh,
Well, I can describe how it works in the more for-profit sectors, in the commercial localization workflow, right? I mean, in their case, they have this idea of continuous localization, which is part marketing and part reality, where as soon as a string is in, it's going to localization.
Yeah, I understand this point, but we're not so fast.
Right, but then it's automatically, it's getting machine translated right away, and then any volunteer, or any, in their case non-volunteer, any translator who sees it will see the segment. It's like getting a job, kind of, right? And then sees it, and it comes with the machine translation already to start post editing in order to be faster. And of course, not just one translation, but typically, right, because the commit is a file or something, it will be a logical chunk which has some context. So the point is that as soon as it's committed, the machine translation is happening and the risk score is happening. Now, when the human comes to edit, it's will be later, right? More asynchronous.
Okay, I understand. So let me just let me just contact to crowding team and discuss a possible way. Probably there have some API events for API webhooks for translation memory updated, and probably it sends strings in some format, and we can send it to model front. So okay, firstly I'm going to contact with crowding team, and then I'm going to back to you. But from your side, it will be great if you can send some docs, if you have something for about your API.
Yes, in these notes that I've linked, at the very top, I have the link to our API docs.
Okay, great.
And I will again paste them into the chat here, but it's
okay,
just,
I will take a look, and because yeah, the main point is Node.js team would like to use some automated stuff instead of manual stuff, and yeah, so I need to investigate because like we have. Okay, thank you. So we need to discuss with everyone and think about implementation to make some steps, because now I can't say something
sure.
definitely. Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you.
yeah, thank you for your great demo. It was great, and now it's like clear most of the points. So yeah,
Thanks
next
again.
step is by our side.
Yeah. Well, we have work to do too, but yeah, thanks again for having me. I'll stick around for the rest of this and really enjoy the very open way that you're doing localization. So
yeah, we are trying. So if you like to stay, you can stay. If not, we
yeah,
are not required.
I'm really curious how this whole process is.
Okay, so yeah, we are going. We have just 20 minutes, so let's go quickly. Unfortunately, we haven't a lot of members on the call, but I should go just to explain each of the points. So yeah, we have a lot of stuff that like open it, trigger it this week, and we are not very active. Like we haven't a lot of progress with that. The key point is related to crowding formatting stuff is annoying, and we are I am connected with crowding team, and they are promised that they are going to fix this soon, uh, and then this issue is going to be resolved. But we have a few issues related to formatting, and it's like hard, and I hope it will be fixed soon and we can close, but for now it's still open. So I just want to warn everyone. All translators can continue their translations, and it will be, the process is the same, but it's for developers side. It's for me and everyone who want to join. It's just quick note, probably someone looking for some updates or trigger. Another side is protect folder with translated content from manual updates. Is an issue that we discussed before, is about to prevent manual updates for our content because we are want to fully migrate to crowd-in process instead of GitHub PR flow, and we need to protect in some way to prevent making manual changes. And here a few discussed idea. First one is related to write GitHub action workflow to write some comment under PR that changed content. And I started working on that. It's like you can see it here. This is PR contain one file. It's called protect content from manual changes. It's checking for opened pull request. Does it open for does it contain changes for content folder? And if yes, it should create a comment. But we have some points against. It's related to this event probably never be triggered from for PRs that created from forks, and this is like a big issue. And today I have some time to research, and I discovered that is not probably a case because we are using public repos, and all issues that I found is related to private repos. So I suppose we can try, but if not, we need to find another way for how we can like protect from PRs. And one more thing is proposed by Zeke is to create uh, Husky GitHub webhook, GitHub webhook by Husky to write some message if translator trying to commit something in the same folder, like content or other folder, like hey man, you are trying to translate this content manually, please use crowd-in. But we are not forcing them to not commit something, and we are just write a message. It should be polite. uh, but yeah, this is an idea, and I'm going to implement this on the next week because this week was really crazy. And yeah, so it's like quick update about this. Another stuff is related to supported versions strategy. And yeah, it's really low mind stuff that I discovered on the previous week, that we are removing all content related to deprecated versions or like end of life versions. We are removing it like hard remove from our repos, and this never exists here. And but like don't worry, it's still contained on crowd inside, so we are not lost it forever, and we can uh, revert it and everything going back. But I just figured out that we removing this from repo, and we still not understand the build process, and we still not agreed some uh, ways how we can um, deliver our translations to the docs website or just to usual website. And removing the content is like bad way, I think, because if we write some build script that we are get content from our repo, it will never find content for deprecated versions, and it's like, what? So I propose to store all versions in our repo, and I created pull request. Yeah, yeah. Also, here guys have some points about they're decided to remove these versions to not confuse the translators with a lot of versions and not to force them to translate deprecated stuff and focus them on actual versions and actual translations. But I explained that CrowdIn has priorities functionality, and I updated CrowdIn guide with explanations to that. So now it's like explained, and we just need to complete with versions stuff to revert everything. So I updated. Oh yeah. So I created a pull request that where I fetched all versions from fourth, I believe, or third, no, from version number 4 and until current. And yeah, here I also updated tests, and yeah, so it's still waiting for review. I don't remember what the requested changes. Uh, oh yeah, I already fixed it, but Nick still not make another review. Yeah, so it's open, and I'm waiting for resolving this PR, and then this issue will be resolved, and we are start containing all the versions on our side. Also, after these versions will be merged, CrowdIn sync these changes and pre-translate it with our translation memory, and we have like uh, almost translated deprecated versions. Yeah, we can do this. Yeah, so this like about this point. Yeah, another stuff is related to hiding strings from translation. So before I thought that CrowdIn allow us to provide some glossary, and this glossary is like protect some strings or some words from translations, like do not translate Node.js or not, do not translate Windows, as we have in the Adam demo. But it's not. And CrowdIn don't provide this functionality with a glossary. And this functionality possible just with hide strings functionality. Uh, yeah, I contacted to CrowdIn support team, and they are proposed me this solution. And here's like again question about automatization and how we are developers and we should automate everything, but I'm not sure that is possible in this case. So here's a quick video how we can do this on CrowdIn. I can show you just quickly here. So we have strings for each project. And for example, we don't want to translate Node. Yes, and we just search all. It shouldn't be search. Okay, so we can just select this string and click hide. And this string will never be shown for translators if we are going to but I don't know where to find. Okay, I know one case where I prevented from translation a few links, so I just going to show you. So just a second. Yeah, so here's a list of strings that like have this badge hidden, and it's possible to click save, I suppose. Yeah, it's possible, but it's like hidden, and it should be like rings for translators to not translate it. So yeah, it's how it should be. It can be handled manual, as I show you now, and it also can be handled by API. But from my point of view, it's really hard to implement API solution because we need to think about a lot of stuff related to how we decide which string to translate, which string to not translate, think about patterns, think about some rejects, I don't know. And from my side, it's overhead. Yeah, unfortunately, we should do some manual stuff instead of try to automate it. Yeah. Uh, so it's still open. If you have any opinion about this, please write it below. And
One thing I mentioned in my notes was that the benefit of this kind of do not translate list, of course, how it gets applied is another story, but the benefit of it and why I personally think it's justified as an investment is because it works for all your languages.
yeah, it works for all languages. Yeah.
So it's quite a good payoff. And unfortunately, the way that neural machine translation is going right now, this kind of stuff is getting translated. I have huge issues right now, huge, with Google and Microsoft custom translation clients who use that, where it is translating their parts of their URLs, paths, especially for this kind of technical documentation. And I don't see it getting better anytime soon, because the whole direction over the last 10 years is towards neural, and neural has other benefits, but it has this problem. So I would just start investing in these huge lists and think about maybe ways of automating it. Like say, okay, I take the entire node, all the node, мы говорим государственный, like the buffer, read file sync, all of these kind of,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
all, and just create a huge list of those, and say, okay, this is all. There better be a really good reason to translate any of these.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where I need to figure it out how we can, how we're going to solve this in the future. So it's still open, and yeah, as I said, if you have any opinion, please write it below, and I hope we are resolve it soon, probably on the next week. I will start force everyone to write their opinion on the next week. Yeah. Another stuff is, yeah, is some issues that I discovered also on the previous week is related to infinite pending checks for auto-created PRs. And on this week, I faced with the same issue, but on my main job. And I started researching about this, and I found this is like expected behavior that uh, event that triggered by GitHub Actions not trigger another GitHub action. As a reason of this is to not make infinite loop of workflows. It's like to not make some call stack. And that's how GitHub prevent them from overhead loop. And the possible, and here's just a few workarounds. First of one is to manually close and reopen pull request, and then all workflows start running like as usual, because you trigger it is manually. And another stuff is to make all events not from as a GitHub bot, and make it as a real user, real GitHub user. And all both of these options is working for us because we have a Node.js crowd-in bot, which is not real user, but this is users that we are using for integrate with crowd-in, and I suppose we can use it for the same these reasons. But again, this question is still open. Here's, as you can see here, just my opinions, my comments. So I'm waiting for other opinions. All is welcome. And yeah, so I just proposed two ways, and if somebody else have an idea, welcome. Uh, yep. One more thing is opened by Nick, related to, yeah, it's like how our translation is going to be live. And yeah, here's some discussion in another repo about this. So like this is still open question because it was never be configured to deliver translations to website, and we need to start thinking about it. I hope Nick started, but there's no any marks. I just asked it, can I help with something, and I'm waiting. So because we are, we have some conflicts before when I implement and he's implements the same stuff, and like we should close one of the PRs, and it's not very comfortable thing. So like it's open question, and I think we need to start thinking about building. But again, it's not related. Shouldn't affect to our translators. Translators still can continue doing their great stuff, great contribution, and yeah, it's just related to building, and just continue doing your stuff. Help us. And yeah, and one more thing is, in one of the times that I asked Crowdin support for help, they are also asked me about can they are add Node.js logo to Crowdin as like our clients. And I said, okay, I think there's no any problems, but as I can see, it's like some problems here exist, and it's not a question to us; it's question to some community committee team, and like let's wait for their response. But I just described because I should, so everyone knows. And yeah, and the last one I already described is we have some formatting issues with Crowdin and Crowdin working. Yeah. So guys, any question? I did big monologue. uh, yeah. If any questions here, because we are almost done with our time, I have free time next hour, so we can continue. But I would like to go with reglement. So yeah. Any questions about any issues or any open questions that you want to discuss here? Everything welcome. Okay, no questions. Yeah. Asad, do you have any questions? Okay. So no any questions, and I think we can end with this meeting. Yeah, it was really great. Thank you for demo, Adam. Again, yeah, it's really great, and now it's more clear for me especially. And yeah, and I'm going, as I said, I'm going to investigate with this process and understand it deeper and try to find the solution with Crowdin and try to integrate with you. Yeah. So
thanks. As soon as that custom model is trained, I'll update that we have a bug for it. So
okay, great. So yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining, and see you next week. Have a nice day.
ciao.
See you. Bye, guys.